The abandoned warehouse echoed with Damon's muffled screams. Blood poured endlessly from his mouth, dripping down his chin, neck, and shirt while he cried violently against the restraints. His entire body trembled from pain and terror, a spirit sound escaping his throat despite no longer having a tongue to form proper words. Meanwhile, Jungkook stood directly in front of him, laughing, not loudly, not happily, but coldly, cruelly. The kind of laugh that made the warehouse feel ever even darker. Jungkook tilted his head slightly while staring at Taemin's fumed mouth. What happened? He mocked quietly. Why aren't you talking anymore? Taemin cried harder, immediate blood mixed with tears across his face while broken sounds escaped his throat desperately. Jungkook smoked faintly. You loved using that tongue before, he murmured coldly. Now look at you. Taemin shook violently in fear. His breathing turned uneven and suffocated from panic while blood continued pouring onto his chest. Then suddenly, footsteps echoed nearby. Jin returned. The moment he entered properly and saw Taemin's condition, he froze. For the first time in years, genuine shock crossed Jin's face. His eyes widened slightly while looking at the blood. Blood-covered floor, the scissors, and Taemin crying soundlessly in their restraints. Damn, Jin muttered quietly under his breath. Jungkook slowly looked towards him calmly, then glanced down at his watch. 11:57 p.m. Jungkook's lips slowly curled upwards. We need to hurry, he said casually. What? Jin called immediately. Jungkook looked at him silently for 1 second, then smoked. Jin instantly understood that expression and hated it. What did you do? He asked suspiciously. Jungkook ignored the question completely. Instead, he stepped aside slightly while nodding towards the machine beneath them. Turn it on. Taemin's eyes widened in absolute horror. He started thrashing violently against the restraints again, broken cries escaping his wrong throat desperately while shaking his head repeatedly. Jin looked between Taemin and Jungkook silently, then sighed heavily. You're seriously insane, he muttered. Still, he moved without wasting more time. Jin grabbed the safety suit hanging nearby and quickly wore the protective clothing gloves carefully. No fingerprints, no evidence, no mistakes. Meanwhile, Taemin cried uncontrollably while trying to free himself. The metal restraints rattled while Jungkook simply watched him silently. Then finally, Jin pressed the switch. The massive meat shredder machine suddenly rolled to life beneath Taemin. Loud, violent, terrifying. The sharp rotating blades began spinning aggressively under his restrained legs, with horrifying mechanical sound echoing throughout the warehouse. Taemin completely lost control. His body shook violently while muffled screams tore from his throat. Tears streamed endlessly down his face while he begged desperately through broken sounds nobody could understand anymore. Jin avoided looking directly at him, even he looked disturbed now. But Jungkook only stared calmly at his watch, 11:59 p.m. Then suddenly, police sirens echoed faintly outside the warehouse. Jin immediately looked up sharply. What the hell? He snapped, but Jungkook only smiled wider, then quietly murmured, right on time. Jin stared at him in disbelief. You called them? Jungkook didn't answer. Instead, he pressed another switch. Click. The restraints suddenly released. Taemin dropped directly downward, and the machine caught him instantly. A horrifying scream exploded through the warehouse. Blood spread violently across the metal walls while the machine shredded through flesh and bone with unbearable sounds. Jin clenched his jaw tightly. Even after years beside Jungkook, something still made his stomach turn. Meanwhile, outside, rapid footsteps echoed loudly through the warehouse entrance. Police! They are inside! Someone shouted distantly. Jin immediately grabbed Jungkook's arm. Move! Jungkook took one final glance towards the machine, towards Taemin, then calmly turned away. The two disappeared quickly through the back exit just as police officers stormed deeper inside the building. And then Lisa entered, running, breathing hard, gun raised carefully. Police she shouted while rushing inside with her team behind her. But the moment her eyes landed on the machine, she froze. Everything stopped. The horrifying sound of the shredder echoed through the warehouse while blood covered the floor beneath her. And trapped inside, teeming, half shredded, still moaning, still dying. Lisa's face instantly turned pale. Oh my god, she dropped her gun immediately and ran towards the machine. Stop the machine, she screamed desperately. Her trembling hands grabbed onto Timon's arm, trying to pull him upward with all her strength, but it was impossible. The machine kept dragging him downward. Damon looked at her weakly through blood-filled eyes, his body convulsed violently. Lisa cried openly now while desperately trying to save him. Hold on, she shouted hysterically. Hold on. Damon's round mouth moved weakly, trying to speak, trying desperately to say something. Blood bubbled from his lips while his remaining hand pushed helplessly towards her. Then finally a broken sound escaped him. Jung, and suddenly the machine pulled him fully inside. The scream stopped instantly. Silence crashed through the warehouse. Lisa stared blankly for one horrifying second, then suddenly vomited violently onto the floor. Beside the machine, her entire body collapsed. Afterward, she fell onto her knees, crying uncontrollably while shaking badly. The police officer around her immediately looked away in horror while some rushed to shut the machine down. Others searched the warehouse desperately. Check every room. They couldn't have gone far. Back exit 2. The officer ran throughout the warehouse immediately. Meanwhile, Lisa stayed frozen on the floor, crying heavily, unable to tear her eyes away from the blood-covered machine. Nani quickly rushed towards her. Lisa, she cried worriedly before kneeling beside her immediately. Lisa shook violently and tears streamed endlessly down her face. I couldn't save him, she whispered brokenly. Nari hugged her tightly at once. It's okay, she whispered shakily despite being pale herself. It's okay, Lisa cried harder against her shoulder, while the horrifying smell of blood filled the warehouse completely. Nearby officer returned moments later. Nothing, one shouted frustratedly. No suspects, back doors empty too. They're gone. Meanwhile, far away from the warehouse, Jungkook walked silently into the darkness beside Jen, his clothes stained with blood. His face empty, and behind them police sirens screamed endlessly into the night.